A Canadian rapper using a fake accent, a British pop star doing a goofy dance, a rock god who stole the soul from a revolutionary anthem. These are just some of the artists who created the worst reggae of all time. We're counting them down, and the stories behind their musical crimes are unbelievable. 1. Magic.
Saturday morning, jumped out of bed.
If you were anywhere near a radio in the year 2014, you could not escape the song Rude by the Canadian band Magic. It was a global smash hit, a seemingly sweet song about a young man asking a father for his daughter's hand in marriage. The music was a light, breezy reggae pop fusion that was undeniably catchy. And for many people, it was also one of the most annoying and inauthentic songs ever made. The backlash against Rude was swift and fierce, especially from the reggae community. The thing is, the song was seen as the ultimate example of corporate, soulless reggae. The production is slick and plastic, with none of the warmth or grit of real Jamaican music. The singer's vocals are whiny and lack any sense of passion or conviction. The lyrics, while telling a story, have none of the social or spiritual depth that is so central to the genre. To put it mildly, it's a pop song that's simply wearing a reggae costume. What made it worse was its incredible popularity. For a new generation of listeners, this shallow pop tune became their main reference point for what reggae sounds like. Reggae purists saw it as a total misrepresentation of the culture, a song that took the surface-level sounds of the music without understanding any of its history or meaning. Magic created the modern blueprint for bland reggae pop, but our next band did the exact same thing 20 years earlier. 2. Big Mountain. In 1994, the American band Big Mountain had a huge international hit with their cover of Peter Frampton's rock ballad, Baby, I Love Your Way. The song was featured in the popular movie Reality Bites and became a staple of 90s radio. The cover transformed the rock song into a smooth, easy-listening reggae pop track. And for reggae purists, it was another nail in the coffin of the genre's integrity. The criticism against Big Mountain is almost identical to the criticism of bands like Magic. Their version of reggae is overly polished, slick, and completely lacking in depth or soul. The production is clean and radio-friendly, the vocals are smooth and unthreatening, and the overall vibe is one of safe corporate pop music. Many people are crazy about this kind of sound, but it takes the powerful and often raw emotions of reggae and sanitizes them for mass consumption. Baby, I Love Your Way is a frequent target on reggae forums and discussions about the commercialization of the genre. It's seen as a quintessential example of a band taking a well-known song, giving it a superficial reggae makeover, and cashing in on the trend. For fans of authentic reggae, the music of Big Mountain is just another bland and forgettable imitation. Big Mountain made reggae safe for the movies, but our next artist made a global summer anthem that purists absolutely despise. 3. Omi. In 2014, the song Cheerleader by Jamaican singer Omi was absolutely inescapable. A remix by a German DJ turned the track into a global phenomenon, topping the charts in dozens of countries. With its light tropical beat, smooth saxophone melody, and simple repetitive lyrics, it was the definition of a summer anthem. It was also, for reggae fans, the definition of a watered-down, soulless misrepresentation of their music. The main criticism of Cheerleader is that it's pop music wearing a reggae disguise. You see, all the elements that make reggae a powerful and distinct genre are missing. The bass is barely present, the rhythm is a simple dance beat with a slight reggae flavor, and the lyrics are shallow pop fodder. It has none of the grit, soul, or social consciousness that defines authentic reggae and dancehall. Even though Omi is Jamaican, the song is seen as a product of the European pop machine, engineered for maximum commercial appeal with no regard for cultural integrity. Reggae purists widely resent Cheerleader for its generic sound and for becoming another example of a shallow track that gives the world a false impression of what Jamaican music is all about. These artists made reggae sound like background music, but our next two bands are part of a whole scene that critics call White Boy Reggae. 4. Revolution. In the 2000s, a new wave of American reggae bands emerged, particularly from California. This scene, often called Cali Reggae, is massively popular, especially at music festivals. One of the biggest names to come out of this movement is the band Revolution. They have a huge and dedicated fan base who love their mellow, positive, and laid-back vibe. For reggae purists, however, Revolution and bands like them represent a sanitized and overly polished version of the music that has lost all its edge. The criticism is that their sound is too clean. The production is slick, the vocals are smooth, and the lyrics often focus on generic themes of love and good times. What many overlooked is that this is a far cry from the raw, politically charged, and spiritually deep music of roots reggae pioneers. Critics often label this style of music as beach party reggae or frat boy reggae, suggesting it's a superficial version made for a specific, non-traditional audience. While the band members are clearly talented musicians, their approach is seen as lacking the struggle and authenticity that gave birth to the genre in the first place. Revolution created a polished sound, but our next band from the same scene takes the cliches to a whole other level. 5. Soja, Soldiers of Jah Army. If Revolution is criticized for being too polished, the band Soja, which is spelled S-O-J-A, is frequently roasted for being the kings of reggae cliché. Soja is another massively popular American reggae band, hailing from Virginia. They've even won a Grammy Award for Best Reggae Album. But among purists, they are perhaps the most disliked of all the modern American reggae acts. The thing nobody tells you is that their music is often seen as a checklist of reggae stereotypes. The lyrics are frequently criticized for being filled with cheesy, pseudo-spiritual platitudes that feel like they were written by a chatbot. The musical arrangements are called out for their predictable progressions and lack of originality. The vocals are often pitch-corrected to perfection, giving them a sterile pop music feel that is the opposite of the raw, human emotion found in classic reggae. For their detractors, Soja represents the absolute worst of the American reggae scene. Their music is seen as an inauthentic, formulaic product that has little to do with the real culture of Jamaica. 6. Culture Club. In the 1980s, few bands were bigger than Culture Club. With their charismatic frontman, Boy George, they took the world by storm. Their music was a mix of pop, soul, and new wave. One of their biggest and most recognizable hits was a song called "Do You Really Want to Hurt Me?" And guess what? It was a reggae song. Or at least, it was supposed to be. The song was a massive success, reaching #1 in countries all over the world. But for any serious reggae fan, the song is a prime example of reggae getting watered down for the mainstream. The reggae elements are paper-thin. The bass is weak, the drums are simplistic, and Boy George's smooth, soulful voice, while great for pop music, lacks the raw power and spiritual weight of a true reggae singer. The song is so famous that for millions of people, this was their first introduction to reggae music. And that's the problem. It gave a whole generation a completely wrong idea of what reggae is, presenting it as a soft, gentle style of music and completely ignoring its powerful roots. A huge pop hit can give the wrong impression, but our next entry is a British pop star whose original reggae song is considered the Mount Everest of terrible music. 7. Paul Nicholas. If you thought Culture Club's attempt was bad, let's talk about Paul Nicholas. Here is another British pop star from the 70s who became famous for his role in stage musicals and for a few pop hits. He was a talented performer in his own right, but when he released the song Reggae Like It Used to Be, he created what many consider to be the peak of awful, inauthentic reggae. The song is a masterclass in how to get everything wrong. The lyrics are a cheesy and nostalgic look at reggae, but from the perspective of someone who clearly has no real connection to it. It's like listening to a tourist describe a culture they only saw from a tour bus. The music itself sounds like a cheap keyboard demo. The beat is stiff and mechanical, and the vocals are delivered with a kind of wink and a smile that feels completely out of place. Critics and reggae lovers have pointed to this song for decades as the ultimate example of a musical crime. It treats an entire genre like a silly costume. Paul Nicholas created a cheesy mess. But our next entry is a famous female pop star whose attempt at reggae was so awkward it was seen as a mockery. 8. Sandie Shaw. Let's travel back in time to the United Kingdom of the 1970s. Sandie Shaw was a huge pop star, known for her unique fashion sense and for performing barefoot. She was a beloved household name. But then, she decided to try her hand at reggae, and the results were, to put it mildly, an absolute train wreck. Truth be told, a lot of British artists were experimenting with the reggae sound. But what Sandie Shaw did was on another level of wrong. On television shows, she would perform these reggae-inspired songs with a kind of exaggerated, bouncy dance that had nothing to do with the real culture. It came across less like a tribute and more like a strange and uncomfortable parody. The music itself was thin and lifeless, completely missing the deep bass and rhythmic soul that defines reggae. For many reggae fans, especially those in the Jamaican communities of London, this was the perfect example of cod reggae, a term for a fake, stereotypical version of the music. It was seen as not just bad music, but as a total mockery of a deep and meaningful culture. Sandie Shaw's attempt was truly awkward. Our next band, a massive pop act from Sweden, also used reggae in a way that fans call artificial and cheesy. 9. Ace of Base. In the early 1990s, the Swedish pop group Ace of Base was one of the biggest musical acts on the planet. Their debut album sold millions of copies, thanks to massive hits like The Sign and All That She Wants. The latter song was particularly unique because it blended a European dance pop sensibility with a distinctive, plodding reggae beat. For a while, this Europop reggae sound was their signature. However, for anyone who loved authentic reggae, the music of Ace of Base was a painful listen. The reggae elements in their songs felt completely artificial and disconnected from the genre's roots. The beat in All That She Wants is a synthesized, robotic version of a reggae rhythm that has none of the organic human feel. It's a stiff, mechanical groove that feels cold and lifeless. The band had no real connection to reggae culture. They were simply using the sound as a trendy ingredient in their pop formula. Their sound was artificial. But our next artist is a Jamaican legend whose later work is criticized for turning dancehall into a shallow, repetitive gimmick. 10. Shaggy. This one is controversial because Shaggy is a certified Jamaican legend. His early work had real dancehall credibility. But as his career exploded in the late 90s and early 2000s, his music became a global pop phenomenon, and for many purists, he became a symbol of reggae and dancehall being reduced to a goofy novelty act. Songs like It Wasn't Me and Angel were monstrous hits, but they were a world away from the gritty reality of Kingston dance halls. The criticism is that Shaggy created a formula. It involved a catchy, often sampled beat, a smooth R&B singer for the chorus, and Shaggy's own deep, cartoonish voice delivering simple, often comical lyrics. While undeniably successful, this approach is seen by many as a betrayal of the genre's depth. It turned dancehall into a series of party tricks and jokes, ignoring its role as the voice of the Jamaican streets. For his critics, Shaggy's biggest hits are the sound of a powerful culture being turned into a shallow, family-friendly product for global consumption. 11. Snow. Darren Kenneth O'Brien, a Canadian musician better known as Snow, exploded onto the music scene in 1992 with his song Informer. The track was a massive #1 hit around the world, blending a dancehall rhythm with a rap-like vocal style. The problem? Snow is a white Canadian who delivered the entire song in a thick, mumbled, and completely fake Jamaican patois. Informer is a legendary example of cultural appropriation gone wrong. While the beat was catchy, the vocals were widely mocked. It was nearly impossible to understand what he was saying, and his attempt to sound Jamaican came across as a cartoonish caricature. For authentic dancehall artists and reggae fans, the song was an embarrassment. It felt like a gimmick that was making a mockery of a rich linguistic and musical tradition. Despite its commercial success, Informer is consistently ranked as one of the worst songs of the 90s, and its legacy in the reggae community is one of pure cringe. Snow's Reggae was a universally mocked gimmick. But our next entry is a respected rock band that created a song seen as a patronizing parody of Jamaican culture. 12. 10cc. 10cc is a highly respected and innovative English art rock band from the 1970s. They are known for their clever lyrics and experimental song structures with timeless hits like I'm Not in Love. However, they are also responsible for a song called Dreadlock Holiday, which has become one of the most notorious examples of inauthentic and culturally clumsy reggae. The song tells the story of a white tourist in Jamaica who finds himself in uncomfortable situations. The lyrics are meant to be a humorous and satirical take on a culture clash, but for many, they come across as patronizing and stereotypical. The chorus, I don't like cricket, oh no, I love it, delivered over a bouncy, light reggae beat, feels particularly out of touch. Reggae fans and critics have slammed Dreadlock Holiday for decades. It's seen as a prime example of a touristy song that views Jamaican culture from a place of detached amusement rather than genuine understanding or respect. Their song was a patronizing parody. Our next entry took a beloved Beatles classic and gave it a reggae makeover that nobody asked for. 13. Marmalade. Marmalade was a successful Scottish pop rock band in the late 60s and early 70s. They had a huge hit with their cover of the Beatles song Obla Di Obla Da. Now, the Beatles' original version already had a bit of a light, Caribbean-inspired feel. So, you might think a full-on reggae version could work. You would be wrong, so very wrong. Marmalade's version took the fun, sing-along nature of the original and stripped it of all its charm. They replaced it with a jaunty, almost painfully cheerful reggae beat that feels completely forced. It sounds less like a heartfelt tribute and more like a band trying to cash in on a trendy sound. The production is thin, and the vocals lack any of the grit or emotion that makes reggae so powerful. The whole thing feels hollow and soulless, like a plastic imitation of the real thing. Many pop and rock acts saw reggae as a simple formula, but they missed the deep, heavy bass, the complex drumming, and the raw spiritual feeling at the heart of the music. 14. Eric Clapton. Eric Clapton is a certified rock and roll legend, one of the greatest guitarists of all time. In 1974, he found a massive comeback hit with his cover of Bob Marley's revolutionary anthem, I Shot the Sheriff. Clapton's version was responsible for introducing Bob Marley to a huge white audience. So, why is a song that helped the king of reggae become a global star on this list? Because for many reggae purists, Clapton's cover is a total misfire that completely misunderstands the original song. Bob Marley's version is a tense, defiant song about self-defense against injustice, with a deep, heavy, and militant groove. Clapton's version, on the other hand, is a laid-back blues rock shuffle. He smooths out all the rough edges, and his relaxed vocal delivery completely removes the sense of anger and urgency that made the original so powerful. The debate has raged for decades. Purists argue that he appropriated the genre and stripped the song of its soul and its political meaning, a sanitized version that betrays the spirit of the original. Clapton's cover is still a source of major debate. But our next artist, another rock legend, did the exact same thing to another Jamaican classic. 15. Blondie. Blondie, fronted by the effortlessly cool Debbie Harry, was one of the most important bands of the New Wave era. They famously blended punk, disco, and pop, and they also had a deep love for Jamaican music. In 1980, they released a cover of the song The Tide is High, a rocksteady classic originally performed by the Jamaican group The Paragons. Blondie's version was a huge #1 hit. Much like the criticism against Eric Clapton, the problem many purists have with Blondie's cover is that it sanitizes the original. The Paragon's version has a raw, soulful, and distinctly Jamaican feel. Blondie's version is a slick, polished pop song. They add a horn section and give it a much bouncier, more radio-friendly sound. Debbie Harry's vocals are cool and detached, a far cry from the heartfelt emotion of the original. The argument is that while the cover was a massive commercial success, it came at the cost of authenticity. It took a piece of genuine Jamaican musical history and repackaged it into a neat and tidy pop product. Blondie's cover was a sanitized pop hit. Our next band took that idea even further, creating a sound that some fans call tourist reggae. 16. The Police, Sting. The Police were one of the biggest bands in the world in the late 70s and early 80s. Their unique sound, often called white reggae, blended rock, punk, and reggae into something new and massively popular. Led by Sting, the band had a string of hits like Roxanne, Walking on the Moon, and So Lonely, all of which were built on reggae-style bass lines and drum patterns. But their relationship with the genre has always been complicated. While they introduced reggae rhythms to a global rock audience, many purists criticize their music as a superficial and watered-down imitation. The argument is that the Police took the cool, exotic sounds of reggae but left the soul and the struggle behind. Their music lacks the deep, heavy feel of real dub and roots reggae. The bass, while prominent, is often too clean, and the lyrics rarely touch on the social and political themes that are so central to the genre's history. For critics, their music is tourist reggae, a version that is safe and palatable for a mainstream audience but lacks the authentic fire of the real thing. 17. No Doubt. No Doubt, and specifically their lead singer Gwen Stefani, became global superstars in the 90s with their energetic blend of ska, punk, rock, and pop. Ska is a direct ancestor of reggae, so their connection to Jamaican music is real. However, as the band's sound evolved, they moved more into a pop direction and began incorporating more direct reggae influences, leading to criticism from purists. Songs like Underneath It All are often cited as examples of the band's problematic approach. The track features a gentle reggae rhythm and a guest vocal from Jamaican dancehall artist Lady Saw. But for critics, the song feels like a shallow appropriation of reggae style. Gwen Stefani's vocals and the pop-heavy production are seen as sanitizing the sound for a mainstream American audience. The criticism is that No Doubt often treated reggae and dancehall culture as a fashion accessory. They adopted the sounds and sometimes the look, but without fully embracing the cultural and spiritual weight behind it. Their reggae pop fusion felt shallow to many, but our next band took a much more jokey and sarcastic approach to the music. 18. Real Big Fish. Real Big Fish is a well-known American band from the third-wave ska punk scene of the 1990s. They are famous for their high-energy shows, horn sections, and often humorous lyrics. While primarily a ska band, they frequently dabbled in reggae, most notably with their popular cover of the Aha classic, Take On Me. The issue that reggae purists have with Real Big Fish is their jokey, almost disrespectful approach to the genre. Their reggae-infused songs often feel like a punchline. The rhythms are played in a polished, almost sterile way that lacks the organic groove of authentic reggae. The overall vibe is one of sarcastic fun, which is the complete opposite of the spiritual and often serious nature of roots reggae. For their critics, Real Big Fish treats reggae as just another tool in their comedic toolkit. They don't seem to engage with the music on a deeper level. Instead, they use its stylistic quirks for a quick laugh. This is seen as shallow and dismissive of the culture and history behind the music. Their jokey approach was seen as disrespectful. But our next artist is perhaps the most polarizing and unique figure in modern reggae. 19. Matisyahu. When Matisyahu, an American Hasidic Jewish artist, first appeared on the scene in the mid-2000s, nobody knew what to make of him. He blended traditional reggae and dancehall rhythms with beatboxing and deeply religious Jewish lyrics. His breakout hit, King Without a Crown, was a huge success and introduced the world to this completely unexpected fusion. But from the very beginning, he has been a deeply polarizing figure. For some, he is an innovative artist who is pushing the boundaries of reggae and showing its universal spiritual power. For others, he is the ultimate example of a cultural outsider exoticizing and appropriating the genre. The criticism is that his entire act, while sincere, feels like a strange and awkward gimmick. The combination of his religious identity with the sounds of a culture rooted in a completely different spiritual tradition, Rastafarianism, is seen as jarring and even disrespectful by some purists. His music has sparked endless debates about authenticity and who has the right to make reggae music. Matisyahu sparked a debate about authenticity. But our final entry is a legendary band that started with authentic roots but ended up being criticized for the very same thing. 20. UB40. UB40 is one of the most commercially successful reggae acts of all time. This multiracial band from Birmingham, England, started their career in the late 70s with a powerful, politically charged sound. Their debut album, Signing Off, is considered a classic of British reggae, tackling issues of unemployment and social unrest. But as their career progressed, their sound changed dramatically. They began focusing on covers of old reggae and pop songs, like Neil Diamond's Red Red Wine, which became a massive #1 hit. This shift is where they lost the respect of many reggae purists. The criticism is that UB40 abandoned their roots and turned reggae into a bland, safe, and commercial pop formula. They took the fire and rebellion out of the music and replaced it with smooth, radio-friendly production. While they undeniably brought reggae to a huge global audience, many argue they did so by creating a watered-down version that betrayed the genre's spirit. Their journey from political firebrands to creators of easy-listening pop covers makes them a tragic and frustrating final entry on this list.